Hello everyone, how's it going? In this video we will take a look at getters and setters in Kotlin. First we will understand what is a property in Kotlin. So variables having a class level scope, which are also called member variables, and which are declared inside the class but outside the methods or function, is called a property in Kotlin. So in Kotlin we can define properties in the same way as we declare a variable. Kotlin properties can be declared either as a mutable using the var keyword or an immutable using the val keyword. Now let's talk about the syntax of the property. So here we have the var keyword or val, then we have a property name, then we have a property type, and here we have a property initializer. And finally we have the getters and setters. Getter, and then we have a setter. So this is the syntax of a property. That's how we define properties in Kotlin. And remember one thing, the property initializer, getter, and a setter, these are optional. And we can also omit the property type if it can be inferred from the initializer. So for example, if I declare like a var name string equal, let's say xyz, I can omit the string because the type can be inferred from this string that we have on the right hand side. Alright, so let's take a look at getters and setters in Kotlin. So in Kotlin, a setter is used to set the value of any variable and a getter is used to get the value. Getters and setters are auto-generated in Kotlin. So let's define a property name in a class and let's see how we can make use of the getters and setters. So now let's create a class. So I'm going to call my class test, and here we will declare one property called name, and it will be of type string, and we'll initialize it to some default value, for example. And now I'm going to define the getters and setters. So to define a getter, we type get with a pair of parentheses, and then we will set this equal to field. And for setter we will type a set, and this will take a value as an argument, and we will set field equal to value. So that is how we define getters and setters in Kotlin. So as I have said, the getters and setters are optional. So this code right here, this is equal to if we write it that way. So if I create another class, let's duplicate this, and I remove getter and setter. So this is actually the both are equal because getters and setters are optional in Kotlin and they are auto-generated. So if we do not create them in our program, the compiler will create them for us. So I'm going to remove this. Alright, so now let's create an object of test class. So I'm going to type var t equal test. And when we instantiate object of a test class and initialize the name property, we are calling the setter. So when we write t.name and set this equal to some random value, for example xyz, it is passed to the setter parameter value and sets field equal to this value. So we are calling the setter by this syntax. And when we access the name property, for example, we call a println function and then we'll pass t.name. So in this case we are accessing the name property, and in this case we are calling the getter here. So we will get field because of the code get equals to field. So that's how setters and getters work in Kotlin. Okay, so now let's take a look at what do we mean by the value and this field property in Kotlin. So conventionally we choose the name of the setter parameter as value, but we can choose a different name if we want to. The value parameter contains the value that a property is assigned to. So in the above program, we have initialized the property name as c.name, or for example t.name, and we have set this equal to xyz. The value parameter contains the assigned value, which is xyz. And we have a concept of a backing field in Kotlin. So the backing field, or simply field, it helps in storing the property value in memory possible. So when we initialize a property with a value, the initialized value is written to the backing field of that property. So in this program, the value is assigned to the field, and then field is assigned to this getter here. So let's see what we had in Java. So if we compare this with Java, we write getters and setters. So first we declare a private variable, for example name, and we'll set this equal to some like value, some default value, right? And then we define the getters and setters. So for example, we have public get name, and here we have return name, and in the similar way we have public set name. This takes in a string name and it sets this dot name equals to name. So that's how we had getters and setters in Java. So in Kotlin we do not have to create this private field right here. So this is a backing field for the property. But in Kotlin we have this field, which is the backing field for this variable or name right here. So now the question is how we can access this backing field. So we know that every property we define is backed by a field that can only be accessed within its get and set methods using the special field keyword. So the field keyword is used to access or modify the property's value. This also allows us to define custom logic within the get and set methods. And defining a custom getter or setter allows us to perform any number of useful operations, for example, input validation, logging, or data transformation. So let's see this with the help of a program. So let's demonstrate the use of custom getters and setters. So here we have a program, and here we have a class called test. And we have set a variable called rating, and we have set this equal to 5. And here we have our custom getter, and this is our custom setter. So now we are adding our business logic directly to the getter and setter. So we are ensuring that it is always performed when the property is accessed. So we are ensuring that our business logic always runs whenever we access this getter or setter. So here we have a field, and if the value of the field is less than 5, and this field is basically the backing field, then we are going to print a warning that and this is a terrible book. Otherwise, we are going to return the value of the field. And we are going to set the value of the field. So if the value is greater than 10, then we are going to set it equal to 10. And if it's less than 0, then we are going to set it equal to 0. So we are basically creating a score for our rating, and we are setting the score from 0 to 10. So if it's greater than 10, then it will be 10, and if it's less than 0, then it will be set to 0. Otherwise, it will be the value that we have passed to the setter function. So now let's write some code in the main function, and then we'll run the program. So let's create the variable of test class, and let's set the rating equal to, let's say, 4. So by calling t.rating, we are calling the setter function. And now we are going to access the value of rating. So let's print it. And let's see what do we have in the output. So I'm going to run this program, and we'll observe the output. So here we can see we have a warning because our rating was less than 4. So our custom getter will run when we try to access the value of a rating. And here we have a check if the value of field is less than 5. So if the value of the backing field is less than 5, then we are printing a message on the console. Otherwise, we are going to return the value of the field. So this 4 is printed because we are calling println function on t.rating. So our rating is 4 and it gets printed in the output window. So that is how custom getters and setters work in Kotlin. So an important thing to remember here is that properties which are declared with var keyword will have both the getters and setters function. But the properties which are declared with the val keyword, for example, like if we declare a property called name and it will be of type string, the properties which are declared with val keyword have only the get function. This is because val cannot be reassigned. So if I try to create a set function here, or a setter, you can see we get an error here. A val property cannot have a setter. So we can only have a getter in case of a variable which is set with val. Okay, so that's it about the getters and setters in Kotlin.